The secretary's legs were enough to hook him. As they say, men stay boys forever. She pretended to listen in the meeting, but couldn't stop staring, unable to hide her desire. He had zero interest in his nagging wife. After work, he drank in the office, then bought a beer to be alone. She only headed home with a snack after her wife texted. Even then, the two barely spoke. He ate the dinner his wife left while she made bitter melon water. His only companion was their dog, Yan Tairui. After dinner, he used walking the dog as an excuse to secretly feed him salted meat, which his wife had forbidden. He would just sit and drink, stand downstairs late where he felt more comfortable than at home. But when they returned, his wife noticed something was wrong and rushed the dog to the hospital the next day. But what the doctor said next left him dumbfounded.
TVT. A venereal disease.
How could this happen?
I think maybe we should just go ahead and neuter him.
Do we need to pay the bill?
Yeah, his temperament would be more stable and we wouldn't have to deal with this kind of thing all the time, every few days.
The doctor's words resonated, making her think of her husband. She blamed him for their empty marriage and his past lack of control. Now she spends her days playing piano and meditating, hoping her restless heart settles so she can let go of old grudges. She refused to torment herself further, but then a phone call sparked her obsession again.
Older sister. No, Miss Sue, you can't. Like your husband's former secretary.
As soon as he heard the caller's identity, he was stunned for a moment, but immediately hung up the phone. He knew Miss Sue all too well. She was the woman who had an affair with her husband back in the day. In an instant, countless questions exploded in her mind. Could the two of them be secretly rekindling their relationship? Before she could make sense of it, the phone rang again. The sound of this call felt like an alarm. Her heart raced, her palms sweated, and she hurriedly hung up once more. She unplugged the phone line, her mind in turmoil, wondering if her husband had betrayed her again. This marriage had long been a shell, and she had no expectations left. But that call still caught her off guard. Since an end was inevitable, she might as well face it. After struggling for a while, she plugged the phone back in and sat waiting, nervous, unsure of the truth on the other end. Sure enough, the phone rang. She hesitated for a few seconds, but still picked up the receiver.
What exactly do you want?
We've been at the nursing home for years, and he's already lost his mind.
Could you please go visit him now? This year, because of COVID-19, I can't go back. Just think of it as taking pity on him. I forgot to give you the authorization letter. Hello?
Hello, could you please ask your husband to go to the nursing home and check on him?
You called my husband?
This result actually made her breathe a temporary sigh of relief. Dementia was good news for her. Her husband probably wouldn't have anything to do with him, right? Maybe she was just overthinking it. She had planned to completely ignore the other person, but they called again.
Mrs. Wynn, have some empathy. Just give me your husband's number. Can't you just ask him to go see him?
How could she let her husband care for that woman? That woman tore her family apart. So this was just karma. She wanted to test him, but didn't know how he'd react. After hesitating, she finally pulled out the letter from a few days ago. Sure enough, an authorization letter was inside, but he just crumpled it up like trash. She initially kept this from her husband, but still felt restless. Taking a folder from the cabinet, she found the evidence of his past affair, private detective photos. Staring at the mistress, she grew even angrier at his betrayal. He sought peace in spiritual classes. Meanwhile, an unaware Yan Fusheng lived his routine, visiting the store after work for takeout. Surprisingly, there was already meat on the table today. Still, the noisy juicer always started on schedule. It annoyed him, but he never complained. It wasn't because he had a good temper, but because he couldn't be bothered to argue or fight with his wife. Silence hung between them. Though they were husband and wife, the atmosphere was as cold as a grave. They were like the most familiar strangers, living under the same roof. The next day, he went alone to that nursing home, where he finally met the woman who had once made him uneasy. From the look in his eyes, it was clear that seeing her current state put him at ease. So that night, she brought it up to her husband.
Miss Sue called.
After her husband heard this, his face showed no reaction, as if he had just heard the name of a stranger.
It was his sister calling from the United States.
What did she say?
So
his younger sister is sick? At the nursing home. She asked you to go visit her.
I'm not going.
Her husband's blunt refusal finally eased the tension she had been feeling inside, if only a little.
In Taiwan.
But in order not to seem petty, she still brought her husband along to the nursing home. Looking at the crumpled piece of paper, Yan Fusheng could see the dissatisfaction and disdain his wife was holding back, while his wife's gaze remained fixed on her husband, carefully watching him. The moment Yan Fusheng saw her former lover, she froze. He silently held the bouquet and walked toward her, but after only a few steps, he slowly retreated back to his wife's side. At that moment, the other woman quietly looked up at Yan Fusheng, making his wife's heart tighten.
He recognizes you.
The wife couldn't tell if her husband still had feelings for the woman, but it was obvious that the other woman hadn't forgotten about her husband.
Isn't that enough?
In Yan Fusheng's eyes, his wife was deliberately provoking him, trying to dig up the past over and over again, pinning him to the pillar of shame as the one at fault. Just as the two of them stepped out, a sudden fit of crazed screaming erupted from the woman's room, making Yan Fusheng stop in his tracks. "I'm going to the restaurant." He turned back. As the door slammed shut, his wife's heart raced. He walked slowly toward the door. Though she'd waited less than a minute, every second was torture. The woman inside was clearly demented and no threat, yet she remained anxious, unable to stand still. She had no idea why her husband went back or what was happening. Maybe he just needed the restroom, or maybe he was revisiting an old flame. She listened intently, longing to peek inside for answers. Just then, her husband emerged. Hiding her anxiety, she stayed calm, though she soon felt her worries fade. On the way back, she trailed silently behind him. Later, she took Yan Tairi to the pet hospital, promptly signed the surgery consent, and casually mentioned it to her husband that night.
Harry's at the hospital.
What happened?
I took him to settle the bill.
Old dog. Do you really have to do this?
Yan Fusheng felt targeted by his wife. To him, Yan Terry was the only one in the house who didn't look at him coldly. Feeling stifled, he rushed to the hospital to bring Yan Terry home, but it was already closed. Frustrated, he went back to the convenience store to drink alone. Meanwhile, his wife, left alone, actually waited up for him tonight. She knew he stayed out late every night and had lost interest in her, but home was still home, even if just an empty shell. Hearing his key in the lock, she finally went to the bedroom, but Yan Fusheng didn't follow, instead opening another beer, his only companion. Knowing his wife's obsession with cleanliness, he spilled his beer, waiting for her to get uncomfortable and clean it up. The next morning, she retaliated by turning the juicer to its highest setting. The noise was her response. Though she tried to ignore the sticky patch, her OCD soon kicked in. She couldn't stand it and scrubbed the floor clean. Meanwhile, Yan Fusheng hid his face in the cushions, faking sleep, a silent, ruthless resistance. After the cleanup, he returned to the workshop to hear the master's cryptic words.
When you gaze into the abyss gazes back at you. Step into this abyss, summon your courage. Jump into this abyss, and then you'll turn into a little bird and fly away.
Reality wasn't so poetic. His marriage was an abyss, and could he let go of his stubbornness? Trapped in the past, he couldn't move forward. The next day, he went to the animal hospital, only to find Yan Terry's husband had picked her up without the surgery.
Terry's dad came this morning and took her home. Yeah, he picked her up this morning. He said no more injections.
When she called, it just kept ringing. She couldn't believe it. After all these years, her husband had never defied her. Seeking answers, she rushed to his office, but it was empty. She even barged into the men's room, but still couldn't find him. Then, suddenly, her call finally went through.
Car keys are in the upstairs cabinet drawer.
I took Perry with me.
After that, he hung up without a word. At home, he acted like a madman, mimicking a bird. He wanted, as the master said, to fly away from his failing marriage. A full-time housewife who has long since fallen behind society, what else can she do but swallow her feelings? Yet in front of her son, she still has to put on a show, smiling more gracefully than anyone as she tries on the mother-in-law's dress. When her son asks why his father is absent, she even covers for her husband, saying he's too busy with work to make it. But as she holds that wedding invitation in her hand, she suddenly feels truly old, the family's head missing from her son's big day. The atmosphere became extremely awkward for a moment. Once again, she sought out that private detective just to drag her missing husband back.
He called me. The phone still isn't tracked. What should I do? I'm about to get home. If he comes here, I don't want y'all around.
Her husband was clearly avoiding her and staying hidden, but their son's wedding was approaching. She pressed the detective. How soon could he find him?
If you're feeling a bit bored, you should just come back here.
Clearly, she pushed her husband too hard. She never realized her suffocating control drove him away. Juice had to be served exactly when he ate, not a second off. Every glass was measured precisely. Even taking medicine was a ritual performed right in front of him. She'd lay out pills on napkins and swallow them one by one. No pills missed. His favorite meat dishes were banned, and she forbade giving bones to the dog. The house stayed spotless and dust-free. These routines shackled her husband. Suffocated, Yan Fusheng sought escape through work or cheap beer. Yet, he still longed to be healed. But when he went back to that spiritual healing class, it had already shut down. Even his last bit of spiritual support was gone. He wandered aimlessly through the streets, his soul feeling half-emptied. Even when he sat on the slide where children screamed and laughed, his heart didn't move at all. Happiness felt so far away. He hugged a big tree tightly, treating it as if it were the man who had long since left. But was he really just going to follow his husband like this? He couldn't accept it. Alright, even though she didn't believe her husband had gone back to his old flame, she was still curious and went into that nursing home. But once again, she didn't see her husband, nor did she see a rival in love. So she searched everywhere and finally found her on the rooftop. She was there alone. There was none of the drama she had imagined, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to leave, that seemingly deranged woman actually locked her on the rooftop. It was absurd and ironic. She was trapped by someone who had been forgotten. A mentally unstable rival easily trapped her. She shouted for help, but no one heard. It felt just like her marriage. Exhausted, she collapsed. Time passed before her rescue, while the other woman acted unbothered. Suddenly, the detective sent word her husband was hiding in a hotel nearby. The moment the door opened, the scene was all too familiar. Her husband was asleep in bed, a young woman by his side. The detective snapped photos, paid her, and told her to leave. She tactfully closed the door, leaving all the awkwardness to the two of them, the couple. Faced with his wife's sudden appearance, Yan Fusheng didn't even lift his eyelids, as if he had expected her to come, and simply turned over to continue sleeping. She walked straight into the bathroom, turned on the water in the bathtub, and then, using all her strength, dragged her husband, like hauling a sack, into the tub full of cold water. She thought what needed to be washed clean was not just her husband's body, but also this disgusting betrayal. At that moment, she finally broke down. She let out all the anger she had bottled up over the years, penning him down with all her might. Her neutered dog, her filthy husband, everything before her eyes made her feel like life was just a cruel joke. She cried in grievance, wishing so much that she could be as free as the little birds inside and outside the room. In the end, she cleaned up the trash in the room, left behind her son's wedding suit, and left. At her son's wedding, the two of them were dressed to the nines. On the big screen, sweet photos of her and her husband looped. To others, they seemed fine, but their hidden torment remained. The festive hall couldn't break their silence. They ate like strangers, detached from the celebration. When the games began, he watched his happy son and daughter-in-law. Yet, even as he looked forward to his son's future, he felt a new sense of worry. After the banquet, they drove home in silence. Still acting like strangers, they avoided eye contact and words, expressions numb and lost in thought. The dull days ahead would be their test. If marriage is a grave, a loveless one just drains both people. They stayed in the same room, but the silence was terrifying. Their rare words were perfunctory guessing games. When trust breaks, every look feels like a lie. Life loses its spark. No fighting, no laughter. The only peace is a few quiet minutes in the car after work. At home, it's just endless chores. No matter your discipline, pain is still pain. Hardship is part of life, but letting go is often the only way to be free. Otherwise, you're alone in your struggle. There is no easy answer for the Yan's marriage, especially when only duty remains. You get used to the lonely nights. Can you find your lost self? If not, try to offer more understanding and just keep moving forward.